Hello, everyone. Peace be with all the good people out there. I hope you're doing well. It's good to be back with another discussion, and this might be our final discussion using this particular journal, The Historical Orbit of Eritrea's Agony by Dr. Alam Sagad Abbay. So we went over, the last time we spoke, we went over how Amhara chauvinism created Eritrean nationalism. It created Eritreanism. We went over that last time. We spoke about that and how the extremism that came from the Ethiopian rulers led to an extremism from the Eritreans. What led to a nationalism and an exceptionalism, which Dr. Alam Sagad calls Eritreanism. Of course, this is a natural occurrence. It was a natural occurrence. People were fed up, so they had to do something about it. But we have arrived at the final section in which matters, I think, are made with regards to Eritreanism, matters are made quite clearer than they already were made, that is. So the last sentence we read from the previous section, which was unhappy with Ethiopia, that was the name of the main name of the section. Dr. Alam Sagad says, it was the miserable failure of the imperial and military regimes, meaning Haile Selassie and Mengistu's regimes, to sincerely listen and properly address Eritrean grievances that led in 1991 to the ejection of Eritrea from what Eritreans had been referring to the Ethiopian motherland. I don't know how many or which Eritreans referred to Ethiopia as the motherland, but there were those who used to refer to it as the motherland, such as Walde Ab, Walde Mariam. So this is what has been said, meaning that because of their failure, because of these tyrants with an apostrophe at the end, because of these tyrants' failure, Eritrea chose to go down a path. And we'll see what happened after it chose to go down a path. And we must keep in mind, by the way, that Eritreans are separated between those who are pro-government and pro-EPLF and those who are anti-government as well as anti-EPLF. It doesn't have much to do with, I wouldn't say it has to do with Christians and Muslims. That's not, perhaps, more Christians might lean towards a certain direction, but you guys see that there's something called Brigade Hamadu. A lot of them are Christian, and they're against the government. You guys can call them Tigrayan all you want. They're not Tigrayans. They're maybe some of them are Tigrayans, but compared to how many are Eritreans, if there are any Tigrayans, they're not. I wouldn't say there that many of them. Those are Eritreans. If you look at you have Brigade Hamadu, and then you have different groups who have their grievances with the government. So it's not really a matter of religion. These days it's more a matter of just fairness, justice. That's what it has turned into. In any case, that we can talk about this story when we reach, after this text, we will be going to Walde Yesus's, from this masterpiece, we will migrate to another masterpiece, Walde Yesus's book, Mr. Walde Jesus Ammar's book, Eritrea, Root Causes of War and Refugees. A masterpiece of a man, a masterpiece of a text. When we reach that, all things will be made clear. For those of you who are non-Eritrean or do not understand the story behind Eritrea and this whole Eritrea, Ethiopia, and what's it all about, this text may have given you an idea of what the deal is. Mr. Walde Jesus's book goes more in depth as to what started the revolution, what happened basically, because that book focuses on the story. This text, this journal, focuses on the agony during that time, during the story, and during the history, as well as in the current era. So, current era, spring 2017. That's when this journal was published, but a lot of it still applies until now. So, yeah, that's what it is. But you will benefit, as you have benefited from this text, you will benefit from Mr. Walde Jesus Ammar's book, God willing. He was a revolutionary from an Eritrean revolutionary, one of the pioneers of the revolution. So let's talk about Eritrea being unhappy with itself. The final section. Before anything, I begin in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. I praise and I glorify him as he ought to be praised and glorified. So, unhappy with itself. We talked about Eritrea being unhappy with Italy. Then we talked about that. And then we discussed Eritrea being unhappy with Ethiopia. And we passed through that forest, or we crossed that ocean. Now we reach ourselves. What's going on? Unhappy with itself. The birth of Eritrea is sui generis. I don't know what that means, but I should have looked it up, but I did not. The birth of Eritrea is sui generis. It lacked the gradual historical processes that fermented England and France. It does not resemble the genesis of Germany or Italy, where romantic nationalism glued the cultural with the political community. Nor does it resemble the dawn of the African state nations, where colonialism lasted longer and gave them some sense of identity as Southwest Africans, Upper Voltas, Gold Coasts, and Ivory Coasts. So he's saying it does not resemble the genesis of Germany or Italy, where romantic nationalism glued the cultural with the political community, nor does it resemble the dawn of African state nations, where colonialism lasted longer and gave them some sense of identity as Southwest Africans, Upper Voltas, Gold Coasts, and Ivory Coasts. The half a century of separation from Ethiopia was too short and too alienating an era to give Eritrea a distinct identity. Nor did economic and cultural reasons justify its secession. Normally, it is wealthier regions such as the Baltic states, Biafra, Catalonia, Croatia, Katanga, Punjab, Scotland, and Slovenia that yearn for secession. Eritrea did not belong to this club of bountiful entities, nor did it have its own distinct pre-modern ethnic symbolism, which would have served as a building block for a potential nationalism. What's the source of that? Anthony D. Smith, Nations and Nationalism in a Global Era. Cambridge, Polity Press, 1995, pages 14, also 26 to 27. Anthony D. Smith, Nations and Nationalism in a Global Era. So that's where that's coming from. It would have served as a building block for a potent nationalism, its own pre-modern ethnic symbolism. One might say, well, they could have created one. Well, let's see what the situation is. Thus, the sense of exceptionalism, Eritreanism in parentheses, thus, the sense of exceptionalism, Eritreanism, so boldly entertained by the political actors, is nothing but an overheated reaction to oppression. The overheated reaction included the inflated image of an Eritrea that was economically economically more advanced and socially far more developed than its colonizer, Ethiopia. Again, the overheated reaction included the inflated image of an Eritrea that was economically more advanced and socially far more developed than its colonizer, Ethiopia. The Eritrean youth accepted this anti-colonial narrative as an article of faith. Reasons and cost-benefit analyses were set aside. Reasons and cost-benefit analyses were set aside. Indeed, Eritreanism, italicized Eritreanism. Indeed, Eritreanism is inherently an extreme form of nationalism, and nationalism, like religion, is about faith. Nationalism, like religion, is about faith. Think about this. Let us just let this simmer briefly. Nationalism is an ideology. This is an ideology. When you see people waving flags, whether it's the blue flag or the meaning Malay, the flag that was first used by Eritreans, or you see them waving the EPLF flag, whichever flag they're waving, even Ethiopian flag, whichever flag. When people wave these flags and they're so proud, this is nationalism. But it goes deeper than that. So now, Eritrean nationalism started off as something that I say it started off as something pure. It started off as a reaction, a natural reaction to oppression. People were being oppressed in the 50s. Well, they were always being oppressed, but by Ethiopia they were being oppressed. So they decided to react. That's why the ELM Mahbar Shaw Atif was formed. ELM Haraka, I believe they were in Arabic, Harakat Tahriru Eritrea. Harakat Tahrir Eritrea, or Mahbar Shaw Atif, because they were always in groups of 7. So they were formed. Muslims, Christians, they were together. So these people, this was before the ELF, before the EPLF. This was before these entities. This group was formed out of necessity, just like any revolutionary group is formed. So it started off as pure. Now what happened is this nationalism evolved into a kind of terrorist ideology with this Higdef behavior. When you see people who are Higdefs, they're crazy. They're crazy. You would think that these people are sick, mentally sick. I've mentioned before, I believe in a previous video, I've never met anyone more vicious and more aggressive with their nationalism than Higdefs. I don't know anyone more Iraqis, no. Palestinians, no. They're not aggressive. I say aggressive, and they're more reactive towards the Zionists. Iraqis, Palestinians, different kinds of Africans from North Africa, from Sudan, even Somalis. They're happy, but they're not crazy to be like crazy, like Higdefs, aggressively crazy. From the ones, based on the ones I've met. The only other people you can compare to these people are those people who are the rednecks, those they call rednecks in America. Rednecks, racists in America, they're the ones, Americans, that's, these ones who voted Trump, these types of people. When I say those who voted Trump, I mean that a lot of the country, of America, which is, to me, all politicians they're all crazy, they're all sick. But between Trump and Kamala, I don't see. They're both evil in their own ways. But those who were associated with Trump were those who, like a lot of the stereotypical people who are associated with Trump, are usually people that are from like these from places that are, just less educated, perhaps. They're just proud to be American. They just red, white, and blue, make America great again. Well, make America great again. It's just a blind nationalism. Now they want to call the Department of Defense the Department of War. I understand that's what it used to be known as, but it was a different time. Department of War is like threatening people. It's like you're threatening people with war. You want to scare the world? In any case, so this is what the Higdefs are like. But I think they might be more vicious than this. Very vicious. But look at what the nationalism became. It became an aggression. It became an ideology, a religion. You see many of them wearing crosses and celebrating Christian holidays or Muslim holidays, whatever. They have nothing to do with Christianity, nothing to do with Islam. Their religion is Higdefawism. Higdefism. This is their religion. A true revolutionary is one who is humble. One who is humble. He says, look, the reason we revolted was because we were being oppressed. That's what happens. He's humble. Humble in person, a humble human being. That's why we revolted. If we did the right thing, then may God bless us. If we did the wrong thing, may God guide us. That's how he talks. That's a humble person. A wicked person throws it in your face. We're revolutionaries, especially when their country is a mess. So not all the nationalists, by the way, talk like that. Those who are from certain camps are crazy. And those who are from other camps tell you, look, we tried. We did the best we can. This is what, our story. This is our story. And they're very humble, very, very sympathetic people. People you can sit with, people you can talk to, people you can have a discussion with. Those Higdef type people you can't have a discussion with. If you have people like that running around, you're going to have a big, big problem on your hands, which we already do. So, in any case, so like religion is about faith, nationalism. What's the source? The source is Benedict Anderson. Imagined Communities. Imagined Communities by Benedict Anderson. Okay, so, and that's published by Norfolk, Thetford Press, 1983. So, imagined Eritrea, the Eritrea that was imagined Eritrea rendezvoused with real Eritrea when the EPLF triumphantly entered Asmara in 1991. The once lively and busy Viale Mussolini was deserted, Asmara, if I'm not mistaken, Asmara, Italian skilled manpower, an industrial capital, as well as Arab, Armenian, Jewish, and South Asian commercial capital, had left the region by 1975. Imagined Eritrea could not possibly be more different from real Eritrea. So imagined Eritrea is equal to real Eritrea. Imagined Eritrea could not possibly be more different from real Eritrea. Real Eritrea is just a mess. Imagined Eritrea is it could not be more different from real Eritrea. And Asmara, with its modernist and Art Deco buildings and paved modern streets, albeit aging and tired, was a mere shadow of Pichola-Roma. It was a shadow of Pichola-Roma. What used to exist in Italian times, whoa, what a place. It became just a shadow. Someone might say, but it happened after the war, and forget after the war. Look at it now. Look at it now and look at it for the past 30 years. The place is a dump. It's a dump. And if you talk like this, you're anti-Eritrea immediately. You're a Tigrayan, you're anti-Eritrean, you're not Eritrean at all, whatever. Your mom is Eritrean, so it doesn't count, whatever they throw at you. It's a dump. You know that. It's a dump. And if it was not a dump, you would have sent your kids to go to school in Eritrea and not in the United States or Australia or Canada or Switzerland or Sweden or wherever you are. You would not, or the UK or wherever. You would not have sent them to go there. Send them to go to school in Asmara. Let them graduate from Asmara. Let them become big in Asmara. In ghost town Asmara. With its modernist and Art Deco buildings and paved modern streets, albeit aging and tired, was a mere shadow of Piccola Roma, a frozen 1930s Italian provincial town. Frozen. Didn't I mention in a previous video that, if you show this when I show this to certain people, the pictures of Asmara, they, wow, it's so old. It looks like it's an old city with living people living in it. It's a dead city with living people walking in it. The source is on the source on the crumbling art, deco buildings, and tired empty streets. See the documentary Cry My Beloved City, Asmarino.com. I don't know if Asmarino.com still operates, but the documentary is called Cry My Beloved City. And it was made or at least it was put out in November 18th, 2012. Let's carry on. Yet, despite the fact that reality and disillusionment have been creeping up, the current political entrepreneurs do not want to cease and desist from imagining a fanciful Eritrea. They even attempted to neutralize the glaring but frustrating gap between the imagined and real Eritrea. They attempted to neutralize that gap between the imagined and real Eritrea by entertaining the dream of making it the Singapore of the Horn of Africa. Not even close. Not from near and not from far. Not remotely, not closely. So the source for that is Berhe Hapte Georgis, Events in Ethiopia, House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee, June 19th, 1991. That's what it was about, entertaining the dream of making it the Singapore of the Horn of Africa. In 1997, without great forethought, Eritreanism, italicized, Eritreanism led to the issuance of a national currency, Nakhfa, and Eritrea demanded that it had to have parity with the Ethiopian birr, as well as free circulation in Ethiopia. What's the source? At the time of conflict, 1 birr was equivalent to 5 Nakhfa. See J. Abinik, Abbinik. Briefing the Eritrean-Ethiopian border dispute. African Affairs, 1998, page 97 and 551 to 563. I think it's a kind of journal, perhaps. Briefing the Eritrean-Ethiopian border dispute. African Affairs, 1998. 97, page 97. And then also pages 551 to 563. So, Eritrea demanded that it had to have parity with the Ethiopian birr, as well as free circulation in Ethiopia. By then, it had become too obvious to the Eritreans that Singaporizing Eritrea would require having a total free access to the Ethiopian economy. When Ethiopia refused to commit what appeared to be economic suicide, Eritrea invaded and occupied borderlands such as Badme in 1993, masking the crisis as a border war. For other contributing factors to the outbreak of the border war, see the previously mentioned footnote, the previously mentioned source. During the armed struggle era, meaning from 1961 to 1991, during the armed struggle era, nationalism had been considered so essential and natural that more than 65,000 Eritreans paid the ultimate price for a highly romanticized Eritrea. In the 1998 to 2000 border war, another 20,000 Eritreans were added to the long list of martyrs. On June 12, 2016, Eritrea provoked skirmishes against Ethiopia, gun battles against Ethiopia. At the time, the 32nd session of the UN Human Rights Council was going to convene on July 1st, 2016, to adopt the recommendation of the Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in Eritrea, that the Eritrean government behavior constitute crimes against humanity. Around the same time, the skirmishes were apparently intended to divert public attention from the expected outcome of adopting the recommendation. So, see the 483 page for this UN situation. See the 483 page long advanced version of report of the detailed findings of the Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in Eritrea, A-AHRC/29/CRP1-1, June 5th, 2016. Human rights violations. All the higdefs out there, for those of you who think you have any relationship with Islam, you have nothing to do with Islam. And for those of you who think you have any relationship with Christianity, you have nothing to do with Christianity. Because Islam and Christianity, both of them. I'm not talking about Muslims, and I'm not talking about Christians. What these people do is what they do. If they do something bad, blame them. Don't blame the religions. Islam and Christianity both condemn aggression against humanity. They both condemn violence against humanity. They both condemn rape. They both condemn torture. They both condemn imprisonment of people, that innocent people. Both of them, Islam and Christianity, condemn putting priests on house arrest or imprisoning priests or any religious figure who did nothing wrong. Both of these religions condemn imprisoning people and not allowing those people to visit them. Imprisoning people, not knowing what their fate is. Are they alive? Are they dead? Both of them condemn that. So if you say that I'm a Muslim or I'm a Christian and you wear a cross or whatever, you have nothing to do with Christianity or Islam. For the Muslim, you have nothing to do with Muhammad or Jesus or Abraham or Jacob, who's known as Israel. You have nothing to do with them. For the Christian, you have nothing to do with Jesus, with Jacob, with Abraham, with Moses. No, none of them. Same prophets, we believe in the same people. Generally, we believe in the same people. You have nothing to do with that. You have to understand this, that you have nothing to do with any religion. Because many of you believe that you have a relationship to a religion, but you don't. Because your ideology is not doing good unto others. Your ideology is committing crime. Even while you're sitting down, holding a belief which is so satanic that you can never even smell the scent of any place called paradise. So those Eritreans, if you're Muslims and you pray and you go to the masjid and you appear and your name is Usman, Saleh or Usman, anything, or Muhammad or Ahmad or whichever name that you have, whichever Islam that you claim, whichever school of thought, you have nothing to do with Islam. Islam says to you, I don't know you and you don't know me. God forgot you. God has left you. So don't for 1 second think that you're a Muslim. You're not a Muslim. You're what's called a fasiq. Fasiq means severely disobedient person. Someone who's basically hellbound. Why? Because you support criminals. In Islam, we don't support crime. We don't support criminals under any circumstances. You support it under nationalism, and that's not allowed. Nationalism, true nationalism, is the love for one's land and protecting one's land and one's dignity. And that's it. Defending it. Resisting any invader. Resisting any oppressor. That's what it is. Going farther, to defend dictators and defending evil acts, that's another story. So what happened recently in Tigray of rapes and murders and burning places down and killing cattle, if I'm not mistaken, and destroying farms, it has nothing to do with Islam or Christianity. The only person who nobody has an excuse, in fact. Not even a soldier. There is no excuse. Because in Islam, there is a line that's drawn. There's a line. A line. There's a certain degree that when your life is at risk, your life is at risk. Someone tells you have to be a Hindu or a Christian or whatever, otherwise I'll kill you. You can say, okay, I'm Christian. Because you're saving your life. You don't want to hurt him, you just want to save yourself. That's fine. But when it comes to another person's life and another person's health and well-being, no matter what religion they follow, even if they're agnostics, even if they're atheists, even if they slander your prophet, even if they slander God, even if they slander your prophets, all of them, even if they slander your book, even if they burn your book, you have no right to support or defend or act against them in any way other than your mouth. You can say, you can condemn verbally, but by action, you cannot. You can't kill them. You can't torture them. You can't rape their women. You can't do any of this stuff. No excuse. You have no excuse, zero. But you supported Higdef. You support Higdef, and you supported them before. I don't know if any of you abandoned, but for those who supported them before and support them now, you supported the rapes and all the crimes that took place in Tigray. It doesn't matter if it didn't happen in Eritrea. The whole world is filled with humanity and life. All life is to be respected, even the life of a pig. We're not allowed to eat the pig, but we're supposed to respect the life of the pig. So what Islam do you follow? I know this program is not about Islam, but I want those people who call themselves Muslims to hear it from a Muslim, from my face to yours, that you have nothing to do with Islam. Nothing. You have nothing to do with Islam. Nothing at all. And if this is what you teach your kids, and this is what they follow, they have nothing to do with Islam. Your mature kids, the ones who are able the ones who are adults. A child is a child. He can say whatever he wants. He doesn't know anything. Doesn't know any better. But for the adults, this is something very dangerous. And don't forget that in the Quran, there's something called al-wa'id wal-wa'id. There's something called the divine promise and the divine threat. The divine promise is for those who are good, righteous people. The divine threat is towards people like you, supporting tyrants. When God curses tyrants left and right, from the Pharaoh to others, Nimrod, and you defend them because of pride and ego. It's not accepted, and it will never be accepted. According to Isaiah, may God curse him and his supporters, 18 Eritreans died during the skirmishes that Eritrea we used to provoke against Ethiopia. The longer the list of martyrs, the more deified Eritrea is, and there is no shortage of martyrs, since independent Eritrea, within its short life, has waged wars with all its neighbors, Sudan, Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Yemen. The wars are justified by Eritreanism, and the long list of martyrs is used to reify the idea of Eritrea. The secession proved less in Eritrea's than in Ethiopia's interest. It proved less in Eritrea's interests than in Ethiopia's best interests. By the way, to make it clear, those people who started the revolution generally were not of this Isaiah's mentality. They were not of that mentality. Isaiah and his group, his gang, maybe not even his followers of the soldiers, of the fighters, because they were just desperate for freedom and fighting, but maybe even brainwashed. But it was his little gang of thugs They're the ones who hijacked everything. Isaias was Isaias before he became Isaias. Before he became who he is now, he was who he was before. And people knew that. And you will see that someone predicted that he would cause trouble in the future in the next, next text we read. Secession proved less in Eritrea's than in Ethiopia's best interests. Despite being landlocked for more than a decade now, Ethiopia's economy has been one of the fastest growing. This was published in 2017, spring of 2017. Ethiopia's economy has been one of the fastest growing in the world. By all accounts, Ethiopia, dubbed by economists, the African lion, is rising fast. What is the source for that? See, for instance, Ethiopia's Grand Renaissance, Foreign Affairs, May to June 2012. Harry Verhoeven, Africa's Next Hegemon, Behind Ethiopia's Power Plays, Foreign Affairs, Volume 94, Number 2, April 12th, 2015. Also, C. Clapham and G. Mills, Ethiopia's Stellar Growth, S-T-E-L-L as in Larry, A-R. Ethiopia's Stellar Growth, Lessons for Kenya and perhaps South Africa, Daily Maverick, April 23rd, 2015. Eritrea, on the contrary, has been trapped in an economic blind alley, as if squeezing blood from stone. Though the leaders keep on expecting independence to deliver what it had supposedly promised. The leaders keep expecting independence to deliver what it had supposedly promised. In reality, the struggle for independence has been far too costly and the return far too little. It's as if you have bought some merchandise to sell, you haven't been making any sales. Better for you to go out to file for bankruptcy. Eritrea should file for bankruptcy. Well, it is. It's. I don't know what keeps that place from being a failed state. They're hiding their information, perhaps hiding from the world, hiding the realities. It's a failed state. With 5,000 youth leaving every month, 5,000. I wouldn't be surprised if the number went up. 5,000 youth leaving every month, not to go on vacation. With 5,000 youth leaving every month, secession has made Eritrea the most self-emptying peacetime polity in world history. By any peacetime standards, Eritrea's exodus is extreme. In a mere decade and a half, about a tenth of its population has already left. 1/10 in a decade and a half. 1/10 of its population gone at that time. All those who try to leave risk being shot to death by the Eritrean security forces. Shoot to kill is the order of the government against anyone leaving the country. Among those who succeed, many try to reach Europe via the Sahara and end up in the hands of Bedouin organ harvesters. That's what happens to them when they go to Libya, when they end up in places like Libya. Others drown in the Mediterranean Sea while trying to cross in smuggling boats. See the description of some of the hardships Eritrean migrants go through in Paul Kenyon, Kenyon, not Kenyan like from Kenya. The lone 7-year-olds leaving home and country behind. BBC, 23rd of February, 2015. Also, Martin Plaut, P-L-A-U-T, Understanding Eritrea, Inside Africa's Most Repressive State. London, Hearst and Company, 2016. Chapter 8. That's the publisher. In London, Hearst and Company, 2016, Chapter 8. Despite the unimaginable risks, though, emigration continues unabated. Emigration continues unabated. The commonest reason for the exodus is the endless conscription and denial of basic civil liberties. Conscription, they keep being forced to go to Sawa, and then forced to join the army, and then go do stupid things for the dog, the pig dog himself, Isaias Afwerki. He should not be called Isaias. Isaias was a prophet of God. This is not Isaias. This is Satan. Satan himself takes lessons from Isaias. The commonest reason given for the exodus is the endless conscription and denial of basic civil liberties. So much so that according to the artist Kiros Asfaha, who fled Eritrea to Ethiopia in 2015, Eritreans miss Mengistu Haile Mariam, the Black Stalin, who terrorized Ethiopia from 1974 to 1991. The source, it's an interview with Salina, S-S-A-L-L as in Larry, I-N-A, Wegahita, W-E-G-A-H-I-T-A. Salina Wegahita, salinawegahita.com, August 17th, 2015. It's an interview. He left to Ethiopia and he said that Eritreans miss Mengistu. I have been told that by an Eritrean personally. And it's not Mr. Asfaha. It's someone else. So, someone I know on a personal level. However, the brutal and erratic behavior of Isaias Afwerki has served as the perfect scapegoat for Eritrea's economic malaise. Opposition groups also use Isaias as the catch-all dictator, comparing him with Muammar al-Qaddafi, Robert Mugabe, Benito Mussolini, and Adolf Hitler. Undeniably, Isaias holds a comparable record with history's worst leaders. He holds a comparable record with history's worst leaders, so-called leaders. However, what is conveniently overlooked is the fact that Eritrea is not oil-rich Libya or bountiful Zimbabwe, and certainly not the 1930s industrialized Italy or Germany. Eritrea is not those places. Resource-poor Eritrea's cultivable land is extremely small. Stephen Longrig wrote this. Stephen Longrig, he was some British, forget what his role was. I think he was in the military. He wrote a book about the history of Eritrea. I've been trying to get a hold of the publishers for that book. It's a history of Eritrea, of its peoples, like the peoples and the regions. But in any case, he was some British military guy. He had some authority in the British military. I think it was the British military. You can look him up, Stephen Longrig. So this is found in Stephen Longrig's The Future of Eritrea, African Affairs, page 45, 1946. Also in African Affairs, page 45. African Affairs, page 45. I think it's found in African Affairs, page 45, published in 1946, and pages 120 to 121. And then you have S.F. Nadel, Land Tenure on the Eritrean Plateau. Land Tenure on the Eritrean Plateau. Africa 16, number 1, published 1946, from 1946. So, what did we say? Resource poor Eritrea's cultivable land is extremely small. This British, by the way, Stephen Longrig, I have read, he believed that Eritrea is not viable to be on its own. It cannot be on its own. It's a British guy who said that it cannot be. This is during the British era in Eritrea, if I'm not mistaken. He said it's not viable. I have said this with little knowledge of Eritrea's resources, but he said it's not viable. And I used to say, how can Eritrea stand on its own? How? How can it stand on it? So how? I mean, I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm not saying that I have full knowledge. I question it. I question. I have the right to question. And I have the right to receive answers. I question. I go read something. I learn something. My views may change. Today, my views may be one thing. Tomorrow, something else. So if somebody says, oh, Sammy, you said this yesterday. Well, I learned something new. Opinions change with people. We're not animals and savages like the likes of those you don't want to change, whose opinions you don't like to change. So resource-poor Eritrea's cultivable land is extremely small. In the 1940s, Wolde Mariam, had warned Eritreans not to push for independence in the 1940s, not to push for independence because Eritrea did not have the economic wherewithal to go it alone. Unless reunited with Ethiopia, he prophetically stated Eritrea was going to die. What is the source? Eritrea was going to die, he said. Nai Ertra Semunawi Gazeta Asmara, 17th of April 1947. Page 4. So that's in the weekly Gazette, weekly Eritrean Gazette newspaper. Okay, so he said Eritrea was going to die. When was it published? (1947). I know he may have changed a thing or two, I believe, since that time in his beliefs, but I don't know how far he changed, how much he changed. Economic realities, inter alia, led the U.S. State Department to advise President President F.D. Roosevelt, that Eritrea had no raison d'être of its own. I don't know what that means. No raison d'être of its own. No justification is perceived for its perpetuation as a separate entity. Its is in brackets. No justification is perceived for its perpetuation as a separate entity. Source: Loy W. Henderson, Division of African Affairs, Office Memorandum, Department of State, April 19th, 1946. Stunningly, even the very champion of Eritrean independence in the 1940s, Italy itself admitted that the Eritreans of the future would not be able to live unless they were on good terms with Ethiopia. The same people it seems like they said mixed things about Eritrea. Count Sforza, what's the source? Count Sforza on Eritrea in the Italian Parliament on December 12th. Perhaps you can find a script of his talk. Perhaps you can find a script of that event and see if he said that or not. He said, the Eritreans of the future would not be able to live unless they were on good terms with Ethiopia. Eritreanism, italicized. Eritreanism is always italicized in this text. I haven't seen it not italicized to the best of my memory. It's always italicized. Eritreanism disregarded all those warnings and sought to go it alone. Going it alone, Eritrea did in 1991, but only against its own self-interests. The result has been the current economic malaise, which is only blurred by Isaias's abusive and erratic rule. So, Isaias is the one who ruined Eritrea. I think that if other people were involved, many of those who were his rivals and still are his rivals, things would have been different. Eritrea would have been a more peaceful, more productive place. Would it have been viable? Would it have lasted? I don't know. But it would have been more democratic, much more democratic, if it had personalities other than Isaias and the likes of Isaias. That's the end of that section. Let's read the conclusion. Conclusion. Swept by emotions against political and cultural oppression, Eritreans adopted a secessionist agenda without weighing the costs, without weighing the costs, benefits of a nationalist struggle that was highly romanticized in the 1960s. They sought to be masters in their own house, which they became in 1991. However, secession, particularly for resource-poor regions like Eritrea, is not a panacea. Forgot the meaning of panacea. Forgive me. Is not a panacea. Thus, Eritrean political entrepreneurs should have tackled the right issues head on, whether Eritrea's problem was a colonial question and whether secession was the solution. Is our problem a colonial question, and is secession the solution? Indeed, Eritrea has been there's another sentence. Thanks to the 100,000 martyrs, the idea of Eritrea has been reified. Indeed, Eritrea has been deified so much that killing in its name has not been considered murder, and dying for it has always been an honorable martyrdom. You consider those people who murdered people in Tigray and other places as martyrs, Mr. and Mrs. Higdef? Satanic Higdef. Martyrs, huh? These people, those you consider martyrs, if they were fighters fighting, if they're murderers, have you heard of a place mentioned in the Bible, Mitzhaf Quddus in the Bible, and also Quran Quddus called Hellfire? Have you heard of that place? There's a place. It's a place, it's kind of like a lake. You can compare it to a lake or a kind of ocean, and it's all fire. There's fire there, and bad people go there. So you do something bad and you don't ask forgiveness, you don't repent, you end up there, according to the beliefs of those of us who are from that region. Those of us who come from places like Eritrea and Ethiopia, whether we're Eritrean or Orthodox or Pentecostal, we have the same belief when it comes to the next life, generally. And even if someone does not have that belief, there's no problem with that. One thing I want to make crystal clear is that my book, on my necklace, it became tarnished, the silver, I need to clean it. This is chapter 2, verse 255, the cow that the children of Israel were commanded to slaughter. Chapter 2, verse 255. The verse that comes after it is in Arabic, La ikraha fid din. I seek refuge with God from the accursed Satan. God says, in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, La ikraha fid din. There is no compulsion in religion. So if someone is not a Muslim, you don't compel him to become a Muslim. You can invite him, but you cannot compel him. So if you're the leader, you cannot force people to become Muslim. And you cannot compel he who is, so if he's a Muslim or non-Muslim or an atheist or agnostic or whichever religion he follows, Hindu, whatever, anything, Jew, Zionist, whatever, whoever is under you, or even not under you, whoever it is, even if it's someone you just see on the street, there is no compulsion in religion. You cannot force him. So the belief that I hold, or that others hold, who are Muslims or non-Muslims, Christians and others, it's not a compulsion. But in my belief, when you do something bad, you go to hellfire. That's where you end up. And if you support that, you go to hellfire. There's a punishment. So for those who believe in God, and many Higdefs claim to believe in God, maybe they do, but they don't know that nothing do they know that of the fact that God is their enemy, that what they support is against the Bible and against the Quran. If they say leave the religion for the mosque and the church, it doesn't work that way. You cannot be a good person in the mosque and the angel and then be a devil outside. It doesn't work that way. Hypocrite. So it doesn't work that way. So Thanks to the 100,000 martyrs, the idea of Eritrea has been reified. Indeed, Eritrea has been deified so much that killing in its name has not been considered murder, and dying for it has always been an honorable martyrdom. Yet, after a quarter of a century of independence, Eritrea's agony persists as secession has failed to deliver peace, prosperity, and democracy. With 5,000 people taking unimaginable risks to leave it every month, the North Korea of Africa is now the most self-emptying peacetime polity in the world. If Eritreans let the chips fall where they may, the idea of Eritrea will be no more. And for those who believed in the idea and sacrificed so much for it, it would be a painful and ultimate tragedy. That makes the metaphor of neurosis for Eritreanism inescapable. That makes the metaphor of neurosis for Eritreanism inescapable. So Eritreanism, unfortunately, became a burden, an agony. Something I want to reiterate. Unfortunately, sadly, we're going to learn about this in the next series about Eritrea. Religion played a role in division between Eritreans, unfortunately. And this is not supposed to be the case. Muslims and Christians were supposed to live side by side in peace and harmony. It's true that our book has what condemns Christianity, and it's true that Christians has what condemns those who don't believe in their beliefs in the Bible. I own the Bible, by the way. I have 2 Bibles at the moment. I have the King James Version and I have the New American Standard Bible. So, when it comes to what is, even though we have these beliefs, it does not mean we cannot coexist. It does not mean that we cannot learn about each other's religions. It does not mean that we cannot teach our children about the other's religion. It does not mean that if Sammy has a kid, he cannot teach him about Christianity. It does not mean to be chauvinistic with religion. But sadly, people were like this. From both Muslim and Christian sides. Unfortunately, that's what happened. Both of them were afraid of each other to some degree, or they had some kind of hatred or whatever, and this is a crime. And you cannot do it. That's not how it works. In Islam, it doesn't work that way. If Muslims are like that, well, this is their problem. But that's not how I am, and that's not what Islam taught me. I don't follow their creed anyway. I'm a Mu'tazili. I follow a different school of thought. So our approach is different than the majority Sunni majority, and even Salafis of Eritrea and possibly Ethiopia. I don't know what Ethiopia is mainly made of. In any case, the point is, this is where Eritrea ended up. What its future is, I don't know. A war seems to be on its way. What it will bring, I don't know. I hope something positive comes from fighting this tyrant, Isaias. I don't know what will happen after. But all of us want him out. Well, no, not all of us. There are many who want him in. But many of us want him out. So, the historical orbit of Eritrea's agony. That's the title of the article we were using. It's a beautiful article. I want to thank Dr. Alam Sagad Abbay for allowing me to use his journal. Not article. Journal. Which can be found online, by the way. He has a book. He has different writings, but he also has a book that I encourage you to read. And read his writings, but make sure you include Identity Jilted or Reimagined Identity. There's more to the title. Often when I open the book, I see the title and then I go straight to the page that I left off at. Amazing book. He discusses in that book just topics that are, it's just a different outlook. A different outlook. Identity Jilted or Reimagined Identity by Alam Sagad Abbay. Look it up and read it. I think many of you will find it interesting, as I do. I'm still reading it. So anyways, thank you for watching and for and joining me on this on this journey that we were taken on. It was quite an interesting one, right? It was an interesting journey. By the way, the historical orbit of Eritrea's agony can be found in the Journal of Global South Studies, Volume 34, November 1st, Spring 2017, pages 50 to 71. It's an article. So it is an article. It says it's an article in parentheses. Published by the University Press of Florida. So, let's pray for the best. We'll ask God for the best, and we will do our best to spread the right information, to clear the people's minds and hearts, and to create a good future for ourselves. Because even those of us who are in the diaspora, we still have a connection to the homeland. Even those who are half, like myself, half Syrian, half Eritrean, we still have a connection. So that's what I have to say. Next, on the topic of Eritrea, we will be discussing the root causes of war and refugees. It's a history of Eritrea by Mr. Walde Jesus Ammar, one of the legends of Eritrea, one of the founding fathers of the revolution. I believe he's one of the founding fathers, one of the patriots of the revolution, one of the pioneers of the revolution, very intelligent man, a big-time intellectual. Walde Jesus Ammar. And he is of those who stood with the natural, honest, sincere revolution for Eritrean independence. Not of these crazy folks that Dr. Alam Sagad mentioned, these crazy folks like Isaias and the likes of Isaias and other, crazy people that you cannot even sit down with. Not like that, no. This is one of the early ones. We're going to see what Mr. Walde Jesus Ammar has to say. It will be very interesting for you guys. In any case, if you guys join me there, welcome to you, and I'll see you there. If this is your stop, then it was nice to have you. In any case, I'll see you next time. Keep safe, and peace be with all the good people out there. I hope you guys learned something. If those of you are not Eritrean, those of you who are not Eritrean, or you want to learn more, I hope this text benefited you greatly, and I hope the following text benefits you as well. Let's make the world a better place. Act local, think globally, act locally, as the saying goes, or act locally, think globally. In any case, it's me, Sammy, wishing you the best. I'll see you if I see you. If not, take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching. Peace be with you.